Welcome to Let's Talk Special Economic Zones, raising awareness of the impact of SEZs on people, planet, profits, and governance with Ainsley Brown.
Hi, welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones. I'm your host, Ainsley Brown. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how we leverage local participation in zones as a means to de risk investment, particularly foreign direct investment. Now, zones, no matter what you call them, enterprise zones, foreign trade zones, free zones, as is typical, industrial parks, it's the same thing. It's a designated area, geographic area, that a government has so designated and has put forward special rules, particularly around incentives, fiscal incentives. That's tax breaks that they give. One typical one is no customs duties on items that are brought in the zone, provided they remain in the zone, or if and of course they're not taxed when they're exported, things like that, or a lower corporate income tax rate than the regular rate that applies in the rest of the economy. Now, typically or unfortunately, zones are associated with foreigners, and it's geared towards foreigners. And yes, there is some truth to that it's geared towards typically to bring in foreign money, foreign investments, but most zones are the identity of the investors are typically agnostic. Whether it's local or foreign, it doesn't matter. As long as they have the requisite funds to invest, most zone regimes are neutral, but they typically will try to attract foreign capital because of lack of capital in technology and etc., lack of access to markets and supply chain networks that are already in place from the company that is attracted to come to your country. So while, and I have to emphasize, while foreigners tend to be who the focus is, it typically isn't a legal requirement that it is only for foreigners. So we have to get that out of the way. Local participation is very important, and it can be leveraged and should be leveraged in many important ways. So, for example, locals may have access to land. Depending on the locality, the nation that you're dealing with, foreigners may not, for example, be allowed to own land, right? So you leverage local participation. There may be even in some jurisdictions, although this is getting less and less, where in order to enter the jurisdiction, you need a local partner of some sorts. So again, going and getting that becomes very, very important. It's in many ways a legal requirement. But going back to the land ownership, they may own land, they may have access to land, so you may be able to lease the land from them, for example, or you actually could enter a partnership with them, and they have a stake in the zone. So that's one way of leveraging. In addition, but most important, the biggest thing to leverage from local participation is local knowledge, right? Local knowledge, or to be leveraged. So it's not just the investor I'm referring to, but the actual locals who can use this to their advantage, whether they're paid as consultants, whether they are brought in terms of equity partnership, or even debt, right? This is also important. Local debt, being able to borrow money locally, is it puts greater skin in the game. So the financial institutions of the local country can participate in the zone by loaning money, and that actually creates and particularly if it is loaned in local currency and not foreign exchange, that can be a great advantage to attract the investors within the wider ecosystem of what you create as your zone regime. Additionally, in terms of local participation, that knowledge, that as I said is probably the biggest area that can be leveraged or should be leveraged. uh, the locals know where to go, who to speak to, how to move things throughout the system, and as a result that is of value. And anything of value can be leveraged basically economically, and there should be some participation, and this should be encouraged, right? This should be encouraged. It should be part of the programming of a zone regime to facilitate in different ways, not just one way, but different ways, local participation, particularly I would say in equity, which means that they own part of the zone. And what it does is it puts skin in the game. Particularly looking from a foreigner's perspective, knowing that locals have skin in the game helps psychologically, but also helps the bottom line, because that means that you can bring in trusted partners, and that helps to de-risk your overall investment and makes your country, makes the country that much more attractive, and makes the investment that much more attractive. So, if you liked this episode, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to see me do a particular episode or a particular topic, just leave me a comment down below and I'll get right back to you. Bye for now.